Knowledge, used 172 times in 169 verses of the Bible. The art of defeating ignorance and gaining knowledge, both divine and natural.
We are unlearned and our vision is limited if we expect God's eternal justice to happen right now. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Rod Hember.
And I'm Janice.
This is the Quick Study television program. We are learning the wisdom books of the Tanakh. We are talking today in the book of Job. And as we talk in the book of Job, we want to talk about what to do in the absence of justice. Now, if you feel like God somehow isn't standing up for you and you don't have justice, we're going to handle some of those questions and the biblical worldview to answer them from directly the book of Job. I think you'll find it be interesting teaching as we continue in just a moment. Corey is also here with Bible archaeology and history. What's our study today, Corey?
Well, believe it or not, what the Bible has to say about camels during the time period of Job, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has caused some people to dismiss the Bible's history as inaccurate. So today, you and I are going to face those charges.
How about we dismiss the camels? I'm not a big fan of camels since the one ate my jacket. Anyway, I'm still getting over that. The trauma of that has affected me.
That's been a long time.
Anyway, do you know?
Do you know, Eliphaz suggests that Job should throw away his precious gold and let God be his treasure. Do you know what place Eliphaz mentions that the gold was highly treasured?
Very interesting question, Corey. We'll answer that and more, but first, here's this.
The book of Job is believed to preserve history from around the time period of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the patriarchs of Israel, or even before. Now, what we're going to talk about sometimes seems like a trivial matter. We're going to be talking about camels and the domestication of camels. In the past, scholars have used camels, and even today, to say that the Bible is inaccurate. Take a look and see what I mean. Details often hold the key to understanding historical narrative. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are clearly portrayed through their details in the Bible as wealthy men, semi-nomadic merchants traveling between Mesopotamia and Canaan. For many years, doubt was the forefront of thought when it came to the accuracy of the Genesis patriarchs. In recent years, however, the lifestyles of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob have been revealed as a normal, vital part of ancient economy, the Bible's portrayal finally being vindicated as accurate. Yet, there's still one detail frequently dismissed as anachronistic, false, out of order, a mistake. This so-called mistake? Camels. In Genesis 12, 30, and 32, references are made to domesticated camels. In chapter 32, Jacob is even seen to be breeding them. And in Genesis 24, they're used to travel caravan-style back to Haran, carrying presents and displaying the wealth of the family to a possible new daughter-in-law. Those who claim a problem point to the fact that there was no proof of camel domestication until generations after Abraham, from 1st millennia BC Assyrian reliefs of pack and war camels. Until recently, there hasn't been much to say on this issue. But lack of evidence does not mean proof of a point. It just means more research is necessary. a cord of braided camel's hair from very ancient Egypt, and a reference to camel's milk from Sumerian texts still weren't enough to change minds. But now, intrigue has been raised again. Petroglyphs of a camel caravan dating to at least 1500 BC have been examined, as well as old Babylonian texts referencing domesticated camels. Sometimes it takes a while for established ideas to be turned around, but this is exactly what's happening with Abraham's camels.
It's time to explore the wise guys of the Bible, and they are all around us. Do you remember the old school rhyme? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a schoolyard rhyme designed to inoculate our children from the cruel and cutting words that slither their way in and out of their lives. But the wise guy knows that this rhyme simply doesn't work. It takes a deep healing to resolve and to dissolve the harsh bulwarks that mocking words in this world build against our hearts when our hearts are violated. In the midst of Job's sarcastic word storm, his legalistic friends are sinning. But surprisingly, in Job chapter 19, there are prophetic healing words that come forth. They burst forth from the tormented soul Job. We'll explore them.
Job 19, 1 through 6, 20 through 27. Then Job answered and said, "How long will you torment my soul and break me in pieces with words? These 10 times you have reproached me. You are not ashamed that you have wronged me? And if indeed I have erred, my error remains with me. If indeed you exalt yourselves against me and plead my disgrace against me, know then that God has wronged me and has surrounded me with his net." Verse 20. "My bone clings to my skin and to my flesh, and I have escaped by the skin of my teeth. Have pity on me, O you my friends, for the hand of God has struck me. Why do you persecute me as God does, and are not satisfied with my flesh? Oh, that my words were written! Oh, that they were inscribed in a book, that they were engraved on a rock with an iron pen and lead forever. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and he shall stand at last on the earth. And after my skin is destroyed, this I know, that in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold and not another. How my heart yearns within me." Job chapter 19, verses 1 through 6 and 20 through 27.
You're watching the Quick Study Daily television program. I'm Rod Hembry. Thank you for joining us. Before we begin our teaching on Job, I want to encourage you to think about something. On July the 1st, this is a celebration of Canada's Canada Day, and on July the 4th is a celebration of the United States of Independence Day. Those who are prayer warriors, those who believe in the power of prayer, I'm asking you to consider something. I have decided to take all day where I live in Canada on July the 1st. I'm not going to parties and I'm not going to have hot dogs and fireworks. I'm going to the church and I'm going to pray and I'm going to fast all day. And I'm challenging you on July the 1st for the United States and for Canada, because we have audiences in both nations and even around the world. I'm asking those in these two countries to consider taking July the 1st as a special day of prayer for our nations. Now, I believe in the power of prayer. And the Bible says, if my people, meaning God's people, humble themselves and pray, turn from their wicked ways, seek my face, then I will heal their land. We need to do that. So if you would like to do that and ask your pastor to open up the church, or you want to pray in your own home, make sure that you let us know. I have a place on the website that says, I am going to pray July 1st. And so when you click on that, it sends an email to me, and we want to know if you're going to stand with us, I'd like to get as many people as possible to pray on that day that God would change things. Now let's move into our study today, which is the book of Job. We are studying from chapter 19. This is an amazing chapter. There's a prophetic statement in this chapter, and I call this healing words. Now this time in 2013, going through the Bible, we focus primarily on the words of Job and not making commentary on the words of Job's friends, Zophar, Eliphaz, and of course, Bildad. This is the answer that Job brings to his friends who are pounding him with judgment, saying, the reason you're suffering, Job, is because you are a filthy sinner. And so Job is responding, of course, that was incorrect. He's being tested by God. And so now we read the words of Job beginning in chapter 19, verse 1. Then Job answered and said, how long will you torment my soul and break me into pieces with these words? And these 10 times you have reproached me, and you are not ashamed that you have wronged me. And if indeed I have erred, my error remains with me. If indeed you exalt yourselves against me and plead my disgrace against me, know then that God has wronged me, and he has surrounded me with his net. Very interesting description of that coming up in a moment. My bone clings to my skin and to my flesh, and I have escaped by the skin of my teeth. I want you to know that. I want you to see that. Now, our first study-wise point is this. Healing words always begin with honest confession and profession to God alone, okay? Now, this is interesting because what's troubling Job is pushing out of him what he really feels and what he really thinks, sometimes about God. And there are times in our lives when we're squeezed. And let me tell you something. You know what happens when you squeeze a fruit? Whatever's inside of it comes out. And so when there's bitterness of soul, when there's torment, when there's struggle, when there's fear, that will come out. In fact, that's God's way of changing us. God's way sometimes is to squeeze us so that we can bring it out. There's nothing wrong with that, because then God can deal with it. So healing words always bring honest confession and profession of God. Now then, let's go on to another passage here as we look at this. We're going to go on actually to verses 20 to 22. And this is amazing. It says, my bone clings to my skin and to my flesh, and I have escaped by the skin of my teeth. That's where we get that saying, the skin of my teeth. Have pity on me, have pity on me. Oh, you, my friends. He cries out to his friends to have pity on him. For the hand of God has struck me. Don't you understand? Verse 22. Why do you persecute me as God does? Are you not satisfied with my flesh? This is intense. So our study-wise point is this. Beloved, healing words always begin with a plea for compassion, not a demand for correct theological exhortation. Do you know what hurts the most in times of great pain and grief? Somebody trying to be theologically correct. We don't need theological correction. We need help. You know, the greatest prayer in the world is help me, Jesus. Greatest prayer. Now, there is a time for theological teaching, of course. But when God squeezes us or somebody near us, we need to have compassion, and we need to live the theology, not talk the theology and squawk the theology. Now then, what comes out of us is very interesting, because look at chapter 19, verse 23. Job then cries out to the universe and to God. He says, oh, that my words were written. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book. Actually, they are. We're reading them. Interesting. Oh, that they were engraved on a rock with an iron pen and lead forever. And then he says these prophetic words, amazing prophecy coming out of Job's pain. For I know, look at these words, I know that my Redeemer lives, and he shall yet stand at last upon the earth. The prophecy of Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. And after my skin is destroyed, this I know, that my flesh, in my flesh, I shall see God. A prophecy of the resurrection of the believers, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another, how my heart yearns within me. Man, this is intense. Listen, here's the study-wise point. Healing words that come out of us, that God brings out of us, always focus upon our future hope, not our present pain. They are prophetic words. this most amazing prophecy. You know, I can think of a lot of places where prophecy might come out. You know, you might think at a great music concert, you know, or a great worship rally where we're spending time worshiping the Lord. This man is in pain. He is sick and riddled with disease. He's lost it all. He is at his end. And it is at this point that that prophetic spirit inside of Job emerges. And so when God sometimes squeezes us, he does so to remind our spirits and to speak to us and say, I will heal you. I, Jesus says, will help you. What a statement. Out of the mouth of this tortured soul comes the prophecy of the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and then what it means. Matthew chapter 27, to the saints who are in the graves. In Matthew 27, it says, and the graves of the righteous ones broke open after Jesus died and rose again. And they went in and visited some of the people, and then they ascended to heaven. What a scene. Job was one of those righteous in Matthew 27. And so the prophecy came true. Think about these words.
Many people find it surprising that there are a lot of literary sources from the ancient world. Right now, what you and I are going to do is take a look at other cultures, other literary sources that contain a similar topic to that of Job. Injustice has been an issue as long as human culture has been on this planet. Why do the wicked prosper? Why do the righteous suffer? Why are some spared sufferings while others are not? There is extensive written evidence of wrestling with this issue as far back as 2000 BC. The pinnacle of this genre is exemplified in the biblical book of Job. In the ancient Middle East, a common belief was the retribution principle. That is, suffering is caused by wickedness and sin, and success by righteousness, and God deals each out. So suffering became a question of whether or not God was just. Wisdom literature that parallels the book of Job are found in ancient Egypt in the Declarations of Innocence, A Sufferer and a Soul, which is a man battling his own soul about the purposelessness of life without justice, and The Plight of the Eloquent Peasant. Similarity to Job exists here, but only superficially. Greater parallels are found in closer cultures, in that of ancient Babylon. The Sufferer and a Friend is an acrostic poem that shares with Job the theme of exploring the justice of God and the style of a dialogue between friends. There seem to be three answers that arise to the question of suffering. The first is that humans cannot understand God's justice. The second is that there is no truly righteous human, therefore all suffering is justified. And the third answer is that justice is not the responsibility of God, and it is not the right of man. Interestingly, the book of Job deals with all three of these viewpoints, and each is shown insufficient in the face of Job's suffering. The book of Job appears to be the biblical response to the popular beliefs of the day. When God finally does speak, he keeps with the purpose of this ancient genre. No obvious answers are given, just lots of food for thought. Not all suffering is caused by wickedness, and human answers are insufficient.
Equidistant lettering, the Bible codes. This phenomenon does not occur in any other religious books or in any other ancient literature, not in Homer's Iliad or in the writings of Josephus. It doesn't occur in recent history, medieval writings, Shakespeare, or other poets. This mysterious code occurs only in the 66 books of the Bible. But what is the Bible code? And is it important to Bible believers? Is it a dangerous cult seduction? Or is it authentic? Join Rod, Janice, and Corey Hembry in a special, never-released 1-hour DVD video about the Bible codes and what they really mean. We also need your help this summer and your support. We are supported by viewers just like you. We will send you the Never Seen DVD Bible Code with Rod, Janice, and Corey Hembry when you write or call. Our suggested donation is a gift of $20 or more. You can write to P.O. Box 150, Murraysville, Pennsylvania, 15668-0150. Or in Canada and the rest of the world, P.O. Box 456, Orangeville, Ontario, L9W5G2. You can also call for faster service at 724-733-8336 or 519-940-8338.
And the discussion continues. You're watching Quick Study Television as we go through the Bible. In 1 year, we are focused on the book of Job. And we are gaining a lot of different descriptions. One of the things that we learn about the book of Job is that in Job's pain, there is great description that comes out of his pain. And that description tells us a lot about his surrounding and his perception of God as well.
And you know, you can read the book of Job over and over and over and over, and you can still glean something from it every single time.
Yeah, in fact, this last time I read it, going through the Quick Study Bible Guide, I think I learned more from it. And it's fascinating stuff. So, Corey, we have a really interesting question for you. Janice does.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So from our reading, Job 18 through 21, do you know what Job accused God of surrounding him with?
I tried to give you a hint, and I don't think you got it, but maybe you got it. But I said, well, never mind.
No, I know what you said. You wanted me to say nets. And I think that that's definitely an option. There's just so much in the book of Job. I'm trying to remember specifically this reading. Anyways, it could be nets and traps. It could be thorns and briars. Do you want me to go with you, Dad? Do you want me to say nets and traps?
Listen, you go with whatever you feel you need to go with.
Well, I'm confused. We'll go with nets and traps, with, in brackets, thorns and briars.
Okay, the only other thing that I would say is the Bible says do not add more to his word. So I'm going to encourage you just to go with one thing. The first thing.
Okay, Dad wants me to say nets.
All right.
I would like you to say that.
Job 19 verse 6 says, "Know then that God has wronged me and has surrounded me with his net." He has surrounded me with his net. Now, here's something that's really interesting. I thought it was interesting anyway. We might be able to think that it was a fowler's snare. We could think that way. We could think of a fisherman's net. But some biblical commentators find an illustration here of an ancient mode of combat that was practiced among the Persians, the Goths, and the Romans. And among the Romans, one of the combatants had a sword and a shield, while the other had a trident, which is a spear with a three-pronged thing on the end of it, and a net. So the one with the net and the trident attempted to throw his net over the head of his adversary. If he succeeded, he immediately drew the net around his neck with a noose, which was attached to it, pulled him to the ground, and then had him trapped with the trident and could
kill him or do whatever.
Or kill him. He had the choice. Now, if this net fighter, as they were called, if he failed to throw the net over the head, he in turn ran the risk of being destroyed by his adversary while trying to get his net for another throw. So you can see the difficulty there.
So you had to get it right the first time.
You had to get it right the first time. So if we put that into context, if we use that as an example here, if Job knew of this custom in his day, then he represents himself in this text as having engaged in a contest with God and being defeated now with the net around his neck. He lies entangled in the net and completely at the mercy of his conqueror, who would be, in this case, God, whom he says has wrongly trapped him. Isn't that interesting? Doesn't that add quite another dimension here to
Corey,
what he's feeling?
It's consistent with the ancient nature of the book of Job, because Job is probably the oldest book in the Bible.
Yeah, it more than likely represents the oldest, Genesis, of course, the first part of Genesis represents the oldest written documents, but Job was probably written first by Moses before Moses wrote the rest of the Torah. So,
and that is a very interesting analogy and probably very true. That's more consistent with...
Well, in one way, one way or another, the net was
either
a
way
form
you're
of
trapped.
trapping.
So
Exactly.
Job is saying, Lord, I feel trapped by you,
Yes.
and you're torturing me.
Yeah, wrongly trapped. What have I done?
The problem is that it's not God that is trapping Job.
That's right.
It is with God's permission that Satan is trapping Job in order to test him. At the end of it, at the end of the book, it'll talk about, can you tame the Leviathan? Can you throw a net around him? There's a very interesting play on this. As you look through the book of Job, it is eloquently designed and very intricately woven together. So keep these little things in mind when you get to the end and we hear the 78 questions God asked Job in 38 to 41. It may seem strange that in the midst of Job's horror, there is a stunning prophetic word about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The Bible teaches that healing words are those that cry forward and not positioned in past pain. There will come an end to all pain and suffering. Agony is finite and hope is eternal for the followers of Jesus Christ. The nature of God is not destruction but healing. So God's wisdom is at work in us when we are able to remember our eternal hope instead of our present pain. With that in mind, we pray, Lord, help me to strengthen myself in your future for me, rather than my present trials and tribulations. It's time for our Wise Up segment, and today we are looking at Proverbs chapter 16, verse 6, as we go through the book of Proverbs throughout the year. It says, in mercy and truth, atonement is provided for, and by the fear of the Lord does one depart from evil. Now, a lot of people equate fear with something bad, especially in our world today where terrorism has been such a major problem. But here, the word fear doesn't mean fear in the way that we think. It means respect and honor. And then it says, by mercy and truth is iniquity or sin or trouble atoned for. The word atone means taken care of or paid for. And by those who have the fear of God do men depart from evil. Beloved, today I encourage you. Jesus Christ has paid the price of your sin and mine upon the cross. He did so because he wanted us to have a way to be able to not only get to heaven, but to live differently here on earth. I encourage you to come to Jesus Christ today and allow his resources and his power through the work he did to enter into your life and to change the situations you're in. Come to Christ today.
Hi, Rod Hembrew here. One more thing just before we go. Remember, we need your help in the month of May and the month of June. If you can support us, pray about it. That's what God would have you do. It would help us tremendously.